Welcome to the Work Wonders podcast, where we simplify HR for small business. I'm Angela.
And I'm Susan. Let's dive into today's episode and see what you've been wondering about.
Today's episode is a fun one. Susan and I are going to take a stroll down memory lane and talk about some of the jobs that used to exist years ago that don't seem to anymore. And then on the flip side, we'll talk about some jobs that are around nowadays that wouldn't have been back then. So come along with us and have a little bit of fun. This is the Work Wonders podcast. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Angela.
So,
You've had fun researching this, haven't you?
It's good fun. So if you do Google jobs that existed years ago that don't anymore, lots and lots come up. But we've chosen a few that we love to talk about.
Yeah. Let's kick it off with switchboard operator.
Right. So I'm picturing, perhaps a lady, not to be stereotypical, but perhaps a lady sitting behind a big switchboard with lots of cords and connecting phone calls. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So having to plug and unplug cables, we know what that's like from what we've been doing here in the studio at times, but with many, many more, and having to connect calls. But they're also listening. So at the same time as they're listening to what's going on with what call and who wants to be connected to who, whether it's a reverse charges call or I'm making myself sound really old here to know this much about it.
You sound knowledgeable.
When I was a kid, some people had party lines, so you could, everyone was on the same line in a street. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We're not going to go there. So one of the things we thought that would be fun to talk about in terms of the jobs, both old and new, is what characteristics would you be looking for in an employee for this job, and how would you assess their performance?
So if you were hiring a switchboard operator today, you probably wouldn't be, but if you were, what would you be looking for?
Unless I had a museum. Well, they had to speak to the callers as well. So they had to be able to be clear, clearly articulate, unlike me. Fast.
Yeah, high volume of calls.
Yeah,
I'd
so
imagine.
happy to do things quickly and under a bit of pressure at times, but at the same time not get stressed by that.
Yes, I'd imagine they'd have a fair bit of pressure, because what if you put the wrong call with the wrong person?
So it would be good at managing your stress. Yes, able to do more than one thing at a time. Maybe that's why there's more women doing it.
Perhaps. We are good multitaskers.
Polite. What else can we think of?
Yeah, good communicator, very clear in how they speak.
Yeah, exactly. And responsive, and they'd be able to set priorities because they'd need to know, what's an emergency, what's not, who can wait, who can hang on the line longer. And they probably know everything about everybody. So they'd have to be quite discreet.
Yes.
And good at maintaining confidentiality.
Yeah, that's quite a list.
It is quite a list, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some things much easier to assess if you are hiring someone than others.
What about if you were managing this person? So if you were managing someone who's a switchboard operator, how would you know that they're doing a good job?
I guess they would have to respond to calls in a certain period. Like, you wouldn't want it to take too long. You'd be measuring the number of complaints. You couldn't really measure it on the volume of calls, although maybe the volume of calls connected.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it's probably not all that different to a call centre and some of the things you'd measure for a call centre. Except you wouldn't have been able to record the calls like they do with call centres.
We'll keep them on hold.
Yeah, and say, your call is important to us. Okay, so that's a switchboard operator. What are we going to... Oh, yes, this one you've mentioned the whole time we've been talking about doing this episode. And I'm not even sure if I'm game to say the name of it, the knocker-upper.
Knocker-upper. Or you can call it a human alarm clock.
Okay.
I've heard it referred to as that. From what I've researched online, there were males and females in this job, so it's equality. But generally, they were someone that walked around the streets and would throw something at your bedroom window to wake you up.
Well, that photo you showed me, I think she had a pea shooter.
Ah, she did.
Yeah.
Another photo we had was a man with a very, very long stick.
Yeah.
And was tap, tap, tap on the window.
Right.
I wonder how many times they had to tap.
Wow, that would be a really interesting one too. So they were waking people up to go to work, presumably.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder how they were hired. Like, did you hire your own knocker-upper? Was there competition between knocker-uppers?
Wow, that's interesting. Maybe there was one per town. I just went through at a particular time and woke everybody up. It's time to wake up.
I thought that was what the roosters were for. Yeah, that is an interesting one. So let's have a talk about how you'd select your knocker-upper. Like if you were say it was one in the town.
Yes.
And please, listeners, if you know more about this than us, I'm dying to know. Please get in touch. But say the town council is hiring a knocker-upper or the village committee or whatever it might be.
Yes.
What would they be looking for in that person?
Well, they'd need to be someone that is obviously very organised. They'd need to have great time management skills.
Yeah.
They need to be on time, otherwise everybody else wouldn't be.
True.
They would probably need to be able to put up with some grumpy people because not everybody wakes up on the right side of the bed. Might not like being woken up.
Who wakes up the knocker-upper? That's what I want to know. Because they're going to have to be a natural early riser, presumably.
They are.
Or have some system that they've worked out to make sure that they're woken up.
They'll have to be persistent because, like I say, some people might need a few more. Like not just one tap on the window.
As you said, be well organised, so they've got to know which windows they're knocking on. So
yes.
have a good memory.
Yes, that's right.
Be in good health because we don't want them having a day off sick because the whole town shuts down.
Yes. They need to be reliable.
Reliable, show up on time.
Everything you ask for in your alarm clock these days.
Yeah, that's right. Or in your employees if it comes to that. And so you've hired your knocker-upper, right? They've been with you for a while and you want to check how they're getting on in the job.
Yes.
How do we assess their performance?
I think you get a certain amount of complaints if people weren't getting woken up like they expected.
Yes, exactly. It's that reliability factor that you'd be measuring through that. And, of course, complaints about the wrong person or wrong window being knocked on and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's that accuracy that you'd want to assess.
Yes.
There was something else that I thought.
I guess if they're having sick days, if they're not reliable and not turning up to do the job on the day, if there's a lot of that happening, that would be...
So there might be a few reasons for having a discussion with them about their performance. Oh, well, and of course the obvious one is if they run late. So in terms of them running late, there was another job that we were talking about, which was the clock keeper.
Yes.
Kind of related, isn't it?
Yes,
Time management skills required.
Absolutely, if you are the clock. Yes, very, very early on, there was, I think, probably one clock in the town. And so it was their job to maintain that.
Right.
So it was always showing the correct time. And before that, I think it was someone actually going around and saying what time it was.
Okay.
Or maybe ringing a bell at certain times, so that there was some consistency.
Okay. So they'd have similar job requirements to
I
the
think
knocker-upper,
so.
really.
Bit of technical expertise too with a clock. I imagine it's not very easy to look after.
Winding the clock and maintaining the clock.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the bells would ring. Like eventually clocks had the bells built in.
Yes.
So they knew, ringing on the hour and that sort of thing. So the clock keeper, some things of that job are similar to the town crier then, aren't they?
Yes. When you said bell, I imagined
Yes.
town crier.
Town crier walking around going, hear ye, hear ye.
That's right. They had a big bell.
Yes, I think it's quite an important role because these days, You can listen to the radio, you can go online anytime to find out what the news is. Whereas what was the town crier doing?
Well,
what function?
From the research we found, they were responsible for publicising court orders just by shouting it out into the street.
Okay.
So
no privacy complaints then?
Apparently not. And like you said, they'd gain their attention by the hear ye, and a large bell. And they'd often have really ornate clothing on.
Yes. Yeah.
And, they'd share the news as well for the area.
It's just so hard to imagine, isn't it?
It is, although I think if you go to the Queen's house in London.
Buckingham Palace, I believe it's
Buckingham
called.
Palace, that's the one. I think they still have a version of this sort of role there to announce the royal birth.
Oh, okay. So what sort of skills does a town crier have? How do we recruit our town crier?
Well, they need to have great vocal ability, wouldn't they?
Projection.
Yeah. Enunciation.
Yeah. And from what you see in the old movies and things, that seems like it was always men who were doing that job.
Yes, I suppose so.
I assume it was probably a fairly high-paid job.
I guess so.
Very responsible.
It does sound like a very responsible job, doesn't it?
I wonder how the pay compares to the knocker-upper and the clockkeeper. But anyway, there might have been some disputes there about who was more important. So the town crier,
accuracy again.
Accuracy, yeah. Presumably someone gives them guidance about what they need to be.
I presume so, yeah. What information they need to say.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very timely. I don't know whether they need to do it at a certain time of day, but that might come into play as well.
It might. Or even, we're used to having the 6 o'clock news or whatever.
True.
So it might have been at a specific time. I doubt that they had to get the news out quickly. If they were the only source of news, maybe it didn't matter, or maybe sometimes it did. For example, if there was, an invading army approaching.
True.
So we've got our town crier. How are we going to manage them in terms of measuring their performance?
Okay. Well, I guess I'd want to know if they're giving out the message that I'm asking them to. So I'm sort of thinking how I would measure that.
Exactly.
Unless I'm actually
follow them around, I guess.
If they were saying the wrong thing, maybe false news or some just gossip.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Imagine the potential for that back then, because nobody had anywhere to check.
Yeah.
One source of news.
True.
Wow.
Another one I know that we've researched, Susan, and my daughter is a lover of Frozen.
Right.
The movie.
Yes.
An ice cutter. I mean, that movie they still have one, but I very much doubt we have one these days. An ice cutter was before the time of refrigerators.
Yes.
And they would go out and cut the ice in a frozen lake to put into the ice box, presumably.
Yeah, presumably. And, it is fascinating when you look at ice was transported around the world. It just blows my mind to think that
melt?
People in Sydney were getting ice for their ice boxes. Well, they obviously weren't cutting ice anywhere around Sydney. So the ice cutters cutting ice for the ice boxes, they've got these huge saws that they're cutting down through the ice.
Very physical job.
Yeah, very physical. But it's also going to need a lot of workplace health and safety consciousness that you're standing on the right bit of ice. They'd need to not care about being cold, although maybe they'd warm up.
Oh, yes, you have to wear protective clothing.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd the actual physical activity would probably warm you up as well.
Yeah. People are relying on you for timely service as well. I mean, the ice is going to melt. But also
that's more on the ice deliverers.
Two different jobs. Isn't
it? Definitely. I suppose you could have your boutique ice cutter. He cuts the ice in your local lake and you have artisanal ice. So like most jobs, there's a certain level of skill needed and accuracy needed.
Yeah. And strength.
And strength. They need to be reliable. Those big blocks of ice that they're lifting and moving around. And what about performance? I guess it's going to be a bit of a piecework type thing, how many blocks of ice?
Yeah, I think so. Was it delivered at, a sort of the right time? Maybe it was delivered at a certain time of day?
Yeah, or cut. Like I'm thinking more around the numbers of blocks you can cut in a day, because the ice cutter business owner is going to be interested in productivity.
Well, that's back then, Susan. What about right now? Some new jobs that might be getting advertised right as we speak.
Yeah, well, they are. You know, we looked up some of them that we were not sure what they actually were.
Yeah.
Such as Chief Listening Officer.
Yes.
So what was that one again?
So a Chief Listening Officer apparently takes data from social media and in-person interactions with customers, and then uses that data to analyse the company's communication skills efficiency.
Okay.
So listening to customers, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Even when they don't know you're listening.
Yes.
By monitoring social media responses and things like that.
I guess it's taking liberties with the idea of communication, you know, and thinking about how they're going to then communicate with their customers to make sure it's reaching them where they need to be.
Yeah, exactly. And also, getting the responses that they're after.
Yeah.
So that's kind of related or in the same vein as an influencer, isn't it?
Right. Social media influencer. That would have never been back in the day of a town crier, was it?
No. Similar in some ways, though.
Yeah. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
So I think a social media influencer is someone who would be almost like a brand ambassador.
Yeah, but for multiple brands.
Yeah. Often,
basically, I guess for anyone who's willing to pay them money or initially when they first start out, provide them stuff for nothing.
Yeah. But they're going to need to be someone that's fairly outgoing, happy to be in front of a camera, of course.
And to do it well, I think you'd probably need to be well organised too, because you've got to be consistent with the posting.
Yeah, and genuine.
And you've got to have results for your clients.
Yes.
Your clients being your sponsors.
Yeah. And doing it in such a way that it captures attention, because the ultimate goal there is to have a following.
Exactly.
And if there's no following, there's no audience that the brands are interested in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still in the tech space, how about an app developer?
Yeah, well.
All those lovely little apps we have on our phone.
Wasn't such a thing as an app not that long ago.
No, it's that step further than just a computer, isn't it? It's the computer we all have in our hands nowadays. So,
and now, anything that I can think of that I want to do, I will go, there's an app for that. There has to be an app for that.
You're right.
There is.
Yeah, you're right. So I don't know the technicality to it all, but I'm assuming it's quite different than developing a program that you can use on a computer or a laptop. But there's a sort of different element to it, maybe.
I guess it's a specialty within that general area. You can tell we're not tech heads, can't you?
But that's it. You are talking about someone very technical, so highly skilled in that area.
Yeah.
Maybe able to write code or something like that.
And would it be interesting to know what their performance is measured on? Like, is it a number of apps? Or I get the impression that a lot of them are, freelancers.
Yes.
Or people running their own business, developing apps. So,
just like with SEO, that's a pretty big thing now with the life of the internet. So there's SEO specialists that can understand how to market a business online using SEO.
Very specialised skill that we didn't need 20, 30 years ago.
No, correct. Yeah. So they need to understand the intricacies of keyword searches and, statistics and things online, what people are looking for and how best to use your money online, I guess. Websites and things like that, marketing. Oh, there's so much to it.
So there's a whole lot, isn't there? Because, it's building, interfaces for people to sell online, and then there's the businesses that sit behind those online shops. So, the technology is just so changed, the sorts of jobs that exist, and new ones are arriving all the time. Related to that, also technology is a drone pilot.
Yes. Yes, I wonder what it would have been like with a drone back in the day.
Well, you wouldn't need your knocker upper because you could send the drone round to knock on windows.
It could do the job for you.
Maybe there's a business idea there. People who don't like alarm clocks or don't want to have their phone in the bedroom.
Well, I guess if we fast forward through the years, technology has replaced a number of jobs, really, hasn't it?
Yeah. For better or worse.
But a drone operator, okay, so I guess they're, I don't know, I know people that take photos using a drone, get the aerial shots and things like that. So they're going to need to be skilled in obviously how to operate it.
Yeah. A lot of the new jobs that we've been talking about are these highly technical jobs. And jobs that have arisen because of the internet. But I'm thinking also that, that's related to where we sit in terms of society and the jobs that we see. But there's also a lot of jobs that are evolving and coming into being that are actually more like the old style jobs because people are so tied up with technology and so, working long hours and doing all these chief listening officer or other related jobs, that they need to hire people to do the basic stuff that they might have done for themselves before. Yeah, so absolutely. You might have someone who is your shopper.
Oh, yes.
For example, who goes around and, goes to the chemist, newsagent, groceries, does your shopping for you. Or you might have an organiser.
Or the meal services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're all very low-tech jobs.
Yeah.
Some of them probably use technology in terms of bookings and hiring and payment and all that sort of thing. But a lot of them really are no more modern, I guess, than some of the early jobs that we're talking about.
That's true.
Just providing an individual human service to other people who are working.
Good point. And I wonder if we were to fast forward another, 100 years or 50 years or something, I wonder what new jobs might be there then.
Flying car mechanic, I'm hoping.
Yes, that sounds fun. If you have an idea, let us know.
Thank you for listening to the Work Wonders podcast. Hit subscribe now so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's, why not tell your friend and maybe even leave us a review. So what have you been wondering about? You can pop onto our website, workwonderspodcast.com.au, and let us know. We'll talk to you again soon.